planet's on fire. It's a real code red. Got us by the balls, we're being slowly bled. All the swollen puppet heads, they propagandize big chocolate points and flat out lies. A house full of mirrors, it's a lousy reflection. Run hard left, it's a true direction. Democracy's in trouble, this news isn't fake. Everything we fought for is truly at stake. Border to border, coast to coast, it's time to cue the talent and meet our host. It's podcast by George. All right, folks, it's showtime.
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. It's a special Easter Sunday morning edition of Podcast by George, and the subject matter couldn't be better, folks. We're going to go halfway around the world. Matter of fact, maybe more than that. We're going to go to Poland. We're going to talk to a returnee to the Podcast by George live line, and it's Bonnie Louise Brown. Now, Bonnie's a peace activist. She's a social worker, a domestic violence advocate, a social justice activist, a world traveler, and maybe she's most proud of the fact that she's the mother, as she calls it, to one incredible son. She's a real hero. She walks the walk, she talks the talk, and she's going to be talking to us today on the Podcast by George Liveline because Bonnie is assisting in the humanitarian effort in Poland from the refugees coming from Ukraine. And before I bring, Bonnie on this morning, I just wanted to mention, kind of update a little bit. People are asking me what I think about Ukraine. I've had it on the show before. Here's what I'm telling folks. Here's what I'm saying. What Bonnie's doing, man, that's spot on. That is the right thing to be doing right now. What's the wrong thing to be doing? Calling for war, pushing for more military, calling for more weapons in Ukraine. We should instead be calling for a ceasefire. We should be calling for a sit down, for a negotiation, because wars never end. They never diminish when we send more bombs. They diminish when we send more envoys, more people to negotiate. Those old men have got to set their wrinkled old asses down at a table and get this resolved. They've got to talk this out, and a ceasefire allows them to do it with fewer people getting blown up. Is it perfect, a ceasefire? No, they never are. I mean, they're always violated. Don't get me wrong. But any level of a ceasefire in any place in Ukraine will result in fewer people dead. And people are saying, my God, atrocities are being done in Ukraine. We've got to go in. NATO's got to get on the ground. The United States has got to put boots down. And I tell people, my God, I'm old enough to remember My Lai. Look it up in your history in your history books. Those were U.S. soldiers. That was Lieutenant William Calley. I mean, he put a couple of, maybe over 100 Vietnamese civilians, old men, women, and children in a ditch. They raped the women, they killed the men. What if mainland China back then had decided that they were going to send 1 million boots on the ground in Vietnam because of that atrocity? If they had done that, folks, we would be singing with angels right now. I wouldn't be doing Podcast by George. And people are saying, well, they're killing civilians in Ukraine, George. We got to do something. My God, do you remember? Do you know that as many as 1 million civilians died in Iraq under a known false flag, a false pretense, a lie? And who was responsible for that? Yeah, us, the United States. Well, they'll say they're starving in Ukraine. My God, do you know what's going on in Afghanistan right now? I mean, that's, again, is right at our feet. That's our responsibility, folks. And what can we do? What should we be doing? Calling for a ceasefire and doing what Bonnie Louise Brown is doing right now in Poland. And she's going to join us here. She's on her phone. I think it's going to work okay. We did a little test here before we came on, and it seemed to be working. Let's see if we can bring Bonnie in and see how this looks and how it sounds. Good morning. Happy Easter, Bonnie.
Happy Easter to you too. Thanks so much for having me on.
I started off by telling people your background, and I mean this, folks. Bonnie is a hero of mine. Now, she was at
Oh.
Charlottesville. Bonnie was up in Minneapolis. I think, Bonnie, the last time we talked, you'd just been chased by a tank down the street
Yeah.
down the streets of
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Yeah,
That's right. Yep.
yeah. So tell us where you are now. I've got a
Yeah.
map actually to kind of illustrate this, and tell us
Okay.
how you got there and what this is all about.
Yes, so actually, I was in Africa before this. So I was over in Benin, West Africa, visiting my son because he's in school over there. And I actually landed on my birthday, which was February 24th. And then I found out that Russia invaded Ukraine. So, I was following the events out of when I was in Africa. I was following the events. It was really devastating what was happening. The attacks and everything. And I decided while I was in Africa, probably about a week before my trip ended there, to book a flight and go to Poland, not directly from Africa, but come back to the US for a couple weeks and then head to Poland to help out. So my round trip ticket was only like $540. I was surprised by that. So I definitely booked it. And then the hostels here were very affordable here in Poland. So I was just like, okay, I'm going and I'm going to do what I can to help.
Yeah, well, you make it sound easy, but it's not easy. It's never easy to put everything down like that. Leave your son, go and do this. I mean, that's why you're a hero of mine. I'm going to show this on screen a little bit. What we're talking about here. Now, this is a map of Ukraine and Poland, and up in the top right corner there, you can see my scrawl where Moscow is, and Kiev. I've circled the capital city there because, Bonnie, we've had Sergei Tagmaredno on the podcast before. He's holding out in Kiev. That's where he's located. And
then you're over in Kiev. Wow.
Yeah, he's in Kiev, and you're over in Warsaw, correct?
I'm in Warsaw, yes.
All right, now, so people can get an idea, kind of, I don't even know what the mileage is, the distance here, but
it's about a 4-hour drive to the Ukraine border, I'd say.
Okay. And they've been streaming in there. Bonnie, I heard as many as like 3 million refugees have been fleeing Ukraine.
That's right. Well, actually, last week they said that 3 million have actually come into Poland, and that doesn't even count the refugees that have gone into the neighboring countries.
And talking about Poland, I just again grabbed this photo off of Google. Google has some outstanding photos.
Yes, it does.
Poland is a beautiful country, just like Ukraine is. I mean, my God, and the history and the structure and stuff that's over there is just. And to think that war could decimate or damage any of this, both in Ukraine and in Poland or any place like that, is just
it's astounding.
Yeah, let alone the human loss. Now, and you're in the city. This is Warsaw. That's where you are, right?
Yeah, that's where I am at. Yes.
Okay, good.
It's a very beautiful city.
Yeah. Let me. I've got a bunch of photos here that I've picked off of Bonnie's Facebook page of what they're doing over there. But I'll show this as we go through this. But Bonnie, I just want you to explain to the folks. I think you've been there almost 2 weeks, and
it's getting close to 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. How many people are you serving? What are you doing?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so every day, I'll be working anywhere between 7 to 13 hours a day. The least amount of time I worked was 7 hours. The most amount of time I've worked is 13 hours. So in every single day that I'm working, we're serving food. I do a variety of different activities that the Ukrainian refugees need. But when we are serving the food, for example, like yesterday, more refugees were coming from Ukraine. So we served, and we have big giant pots of food, and the cooks are constantly in the back. Cooking these big giant pots and then bringing them out every 5 minutes yesterday for hours upon hours. We had to change the big pots of food because that's how many people were coming in and needing a meal. The same with our bottled waters. Like, we're constantly, we have an entire table full of bottled waters. And yeah, you see that there in the photo that you just showed. We are constantly having to put new bottles of water out on that table because they're just going like hotcakes. Another thing I've been doing is watching the children. So a lot of the Ukrainian children that are here, their fathers are in Ukraine fighting in the war because they had put a policy that no man between the age of 18 to 60 could leave Ukraine. So a lot of their fathers are there fighting and their mothers are here with the kids. And so their mothers have some things they have to do throughout the day. And so it's called Children's Corner. And I'm watching the kids. We're doing puzzles together. We're coloring. We are, reading is the best that we can. So, I mean, yeah, we're doing a lot of great things with the kids, and the kids are just always like really happy, and they have smiles on their faces, and they just have a lot of resilience. And, that brings me a lot of hope too, to see that.
And I couldn't send anybody better than Bonnie Louise Brown, let me tell you, folks, because there she is. This is a struggle. This is hard work. As she mentioned, she can be working 12 hours a day. She's been there for 2 weeks, and Bonnie's always got a smile. I mean, Bonnie's always happy. So I got to ask you about this little guy in the slide here. If people can see this on the video, Bonnie, he's in several of your pictures. Who is this guy?
Okay, so he has 2 brothers and a sister. You can see his sister there in the photo, and one of his brothers right behind him. So I've been with these kids for more than a week, like almost a week and a half. And every day their mom brings them to the Children's Corner. And so I'm with them like every day. And we're coloring and we're making paper airplanes and playing with them. And yeah, these kids fled from Ukraine with their mom. And now they actually got approved to be in it's like a shelter for the Ukrainian refugees specifically, and it's 38 miles outside of Warsaw. And so yesterday, we had gotten a cab for them, and that was the last time I'll be seeing them, was last night. That'll be, maybe I'll see them again in the future, who knows, but after spending like a week and a half with them and like getting to know their story and stuff like that, they ran to me when they saw me. They gave me a big hug, and we got them a taxi to go to their new shelter 38 miles from here. Yeah.
God, I just love having you on the show, and I'm delighted that the Wi-Fi is working, that the internet connection is. It's amazing. I mean, we're talking, this is Bonnie Louise Brown, folks. Reporting live from Warsaw, Poland. And I got to tell you something, not that long ago, I'm old, but I'm not that old. I was doing live broadcasts across town, and they weren't as good as what we're experiencing today. So this is great. Well, let's talk a little bit. I'm very interested in this humanitarian effort and these refugees, and I'm particularly interested in the psychology of this, Bonnie. You mentioned those kids they appear to be happy, but how is this impacting the children in particular, and also their parents or mothers?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes, they just always have smiles on their faces, so they are appearing to be happy. But I know that they are experiencing trauma. They're probably really confused, like what's going on. They have a routine at home, right back in their home country of Ukraine. They're going to school every day. And then all of a sudden they're just uprooted by war and by shelling, and they're having to escape and then to be with their moms, but without their fathers, and coming to a different country. And then in Poland, they speak a different language, and in Ukraine. So then they're coming here and only communicating via translation. Same with the mothers. And I know the mothers are traumatized. They're constantly worried about their husbands back home, fighting in the war. I know a lot of mothers had stepped outside to try to call and see, I saw multiple women calling their husbands, trying to reach them, trying to figure out, are you okay today? Every single day, just day after day. So I think they might be in this state of survival. They're just in a state of survival right now. Just everything might seem surreal to them, and they're just trying to survive and trying to process everything. But I don't think they fully process exactly what's going on. And a lot of them, they just want to go home.
You mentioned the fact that everybody wants to communicate. They want to reach one another. What level of success do they have at that? How often are they able to reach, for instance, the mothers, their husbands back home?
I'm not sure. I do know a couple of them came back in and told me that, yes, I just talked to my husband on the phone. He's okay. So I know some of them have been able to reach their spouses, but I don't think others have. And so they're really, really stressed out by that.
Well, that's understandable. And you mentioned the languages. Now, you're in a real melting pot for languages there. There might be 4 or 5 of them going around. What's that like?
Yes, there's a lot of languages. So basically, for the volunteers, they give us a yellow vest, and yesterday they started giving us blue vests. and then they give us a pin of a country. So like if we have like for example, they gave me the British pin, which indicates I speak fluent English, so everyone can see the pins and see what languages they speak. They also have like a Ukraine button to indicate they speak Ukrainian. They have the Polish button to indicate they speak Polish. So they have Russian buttons. They've got I speak Spanish too, but they don't have any Spain buttons, unfortunately. But there were some people there that spoke Spanish. And I've just met people from all over the world: Italy, Spain, France, Germany. People that have come in and helped, and even we have volunteers directly from Ukraine, like this photo right here that you're seeing.
Oh, let me go
They're
back.
both of them are from Ukraine. Yeah,
Oh, they are.
both of them, and even in the next photo.
Ah, let's go
Yeah,
back.
so
I'm going back here. All right, good.
yeah, definitely. So they're there volunteering, helping with translation services. And we are all able to communicate with each other because we have so many different languages spoken and different people to translate.
Well, I hear it, and I've got this slide up for people to see. We're Americans, Bonnie, so there's one thing that we're always interested in, and that's food, and that's what you're involved in. These people have got to be fed. This is a huge humanitarian effort. What's the food like, and how does the food service work?
Yeah, so we're working in World Central Kitchen, which does feed people who are going through disasters, whether it's like a climate disaster, disaster of war, displacement. You know, they're always around the world doing this. So we have cooks in the back who are just constantly cooking big giant pots of soups, sandwiches. People are bringing in food to donate. We got all the waters and everything. So we definitely have the food and drinks for them. It just goes so fast. And the food, I have tried it because we do get free meals during our volunteer shift. So the food is really good. Like yesterday, they had this big pot of Ukrainian soup, and it almost tastes like if you've ever had the hot and sour soup at the Chinese restaurants. It tastes like that, except with like a whole bunch of lime added to it. That's how it tastes. And it's really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the food is good. And I know the people that come in and eat, they're very, very grateful and thankful.
Well, as I mentioned, you've got a lot of different languages. It sounds like they're making do, and the translators are of great benefit, obviously, and just helping people get to know one another. But that means also that you've got a lot of different religions. Now, what about today, and what does that mean in a refugee situation, if anything? How important is that?
The thing is, I'm not okay. So in Poland itself, I know they celebrate, everything here is closed. I mean, they're huge with Easter here in the country of Poland. So everything is closed except the buses. So actually, after I get off with you, I'm going to the I just need to stay here for the Wi-Fi, but I'm going to take the bus over to the refugee center again, over to Central Station, and they are open and they are still serving food. But I don't believe that we're going to have an Easter meal because of people's different religion backgrounds, just to respect that within the center. So I mean, it's not an Easter dinner, it's just going to be regular food again today. Yeah.
Well, they need to be fed. They need to be housed. What are the sleeping accommodations like for the refugees, and then for you? Are people getting the sleep that they need? Is it easy or hard to sleep?
I think it's hard for them to sleep because we've seen right there in the Central Kitchen, we've seen people fall asleep at the tables. Yeah, and that's really, really sad. You know, we don't want to wake them, and we know that nobody wants to sleep in the Central Kitchen on a wood table. Nobody does. Inside the station, we've seen people fall asleep waiting for their trains. So I think a lot of the shelters, you know, they're waiting to get into like a shelter that's within the city or outside the city, like the family that we had yesterday. And those who don't have housing, they're sleeping inside the station. They're sleeping inside the kitchen. Like outside in the main area where people are eating. We see a lot of people falling asleep. So it's very sad.
You know, we talked about the food a little bit. Water is key. It sounds like they've got plenty of bottled water. Now, the other thing that they need are health services. I mean, medical treatment and those types of things. Are those people able to get that medical treatment? You know, I had Sergey Tagmareno on the podcast. Probably it's been 10 days ago at least. And I asked him specifically about COVID, and he kind of laughed and he said, well, there's one thing about war. He says that'll cure COVID or solve it. No, nobody's concerned about the COVID situation. They're basically more concerned about being blown up, obviously. But what about there with the stream of refugees? Is COVID an issue? And how about other healthcare issues like insulin and stuff like that? Are they getting the help that they need on the medical side?
Okay, so the only thing I know about this is that we do have medical tents that are right there in the center. And, every day that I come, I pass a medical tent. So I see them there. They're helping people who are sick, people who need medications. They have doctors there. So I know that they are focused on that. I'm not sure specifically about the COVID situation. I know they have kind of dropped their level of concern regarding that even over here, because they don't require any mask anymore. They don't require any negative COVID tests. They're not requiring quarantine. So it seems that they have relaxed their standards when it comes to COVID, and I'm not sure exactly why, but maybe it's just the situation with the
expediency.
Yeah.
Well, I started off the show in your introduction by mentioning all the places that you've been, all of the things that you've done. Now, you started out in Des Moines. You're out of the heartland, but kind of put this one in context for us, Bonnie. This experience, how do you describe this to people compared to all the other things that you've done, all the other places that you've been?
Oh yeah, and I have done a lot. Well, this is definitely, I do a lot of work in Mexico too with the refugees coming up from like Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and then we got a lot of Haitian refugees, and then those coming from Nicaragua and Colombia that I've been working with and helping. They are escaping maybe like persecution. They have experienced trauma. So I've definitely worked with them on those issues and things like that, and making sure they also get fed and have water, and try to help the best I can with them with their asylum processes into the US. But it's a little bit different over here because you are directly helping people who are fleeing war, which is literally just uprooted by war just out of nowhere. So it's definitely different because I've never helped people directly fleeing from war before.
Well, folks, we're talking to Bonnie Louise Brown, and we're going to have to let her go because obviously she's very busy, and she's also preparing to leave. You're about ready to leave Poland. Is it tomorrow or the next day, Bonnie?
Yes.
Yeah. She's a social worker, a domestic violence advocate.
Night?
Yeah. Tomorrow night. Is that going to be hard for you?
Tomorrow night,
to leave your friends, your newfound friends, particularly those kids. Is that tough, leaving them?
It will. It's always hard whenever I leave anywhere because, I do connect with people really well. I'm very much a people person, and I just have so much heart for people. So when I leave, it's always very sad. I always end up crying on the plane.
God, I can imagine. Okay, well, now there are going to be people that see this, I hope anyway, that are looking at this and saying, good on Bonnie, man, that's great. I think I might be able to do that. I might be able to help in some way. What would you tell folks that maybe want to do what you're doing or anything else that you would recommend?
Yeah, definitely. I would just say if you have an opportunity to do something, well, first of all, they are always looking for volunteers here. So if you have any desire to fly down here and help, there's never a shortage there's all these different organizations, even right at the Ukrainian Poland border, that need help. They're signing people up for 12-hour shifts, 6-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts. And you can always come down here and help. So don't ever feel like, oh, if I fly down there, will there be anything to do? There's always things to do here. And then of course, donations to different organizations that are here on the ground and helping is always very helpful. And just, continue to think of the people here and have them in your prayers. So definitely lots to do down here.
And, for people that want a little advice or insight or help or something like that, they might want to contact Bonnie Louise Brown directly. Best way to do that is on Facebook or Twitter, or how do you recommend people get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can send me a message on Facebook. They can text my cell phone. I don't mind that at all. Putting that information actually on my public figure page. I put my cell phone number on there, so people can have direct contact with me. So definitely.
That's great. And do you have plans now for what's your next stop, or do you know yet?
The next thing I'm doing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I am going back to California/Mexico. And of course, we'll be doing our regular Sunday routines at the border wall. preparing the 200 meals, going to feed the community. And then in July, early July, I'll be going back to Africa for my son. So 6th grade graduation. So,
Yeah.
yes.
My God, that's great. I'm good on you, Bonnie. I'm telling you
Yes.
and I tell people I think they used to say heroin, but she's just a hero of mine. Bonnie Louise Brown, in Poland. Now, Bonnie, I've run through my questions here, and like I said, we got to let you go, but I want to make sure if there's something else that you'd like to spread the word on, something else that you'd like to say or respond to that I haven't asked, kind of give us a final word here. I'm going to give you the last word on this podcast by George Live Line from Warsaw.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having me on again. I know there's a lot of people in the US who are always thinking of our Ukrainian refugees, and gosh, I actually met a U.S. citizen yesterday. He was here
No.
in Poland, and he just came
Wow.
back from the border. Yeah, and he said that he had set up like a GoFundMe page, and his goal was to just raise $500, and he actually raised over $20,000 within like a week. And he said he went to one of the orphanages that's housing Ukrainian refugees here in Poland and just handed them 10,000 US dollars.
Whoa.
They were just, yes, and he was just like, he was just so happy, and he's going to be donating the rest throughout. So he'll be here, I think, for like the next 2 weeks, but it was really great to meet him too. And so for everybody that's out there who's donating and who's thinking of the Ukrainians and doing everything they can, thank you guys so much.
Ah, that's great. Thank you for coming on the show, folks. I love me some Bonnie Louise Brown. I mean, this is outstanding. She's a returnee. She's been on before. I hope we can get her on again. Let's talk again, maybe on your next trip for those Mexico for the folks there. Let's do another
Okay.
live line then, Bonnie. I mean, you're great, and God,
Oh,
if we could always have Wi-Fi like this, it would be wonderful. So thanks again. I'll
yes.
send you on your way. I know you're busy. I hope travel safe. Travel
Thank
well,
you.
and we'll talk again very soon. Bonnie
Yes.
Louise Brown, thanks for coming on.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks so much, George.
All right, we'll talk again soon. And folks, there she is. That's Bonnie. I wanted to again reiterate to people, my perspective on this has always been, and it continues to be, we need to push for a ceasefire. As I started off talking about, not pushing for more military, more combatants. That's not going to further the goal of peace. Bonnie Louise Brown is a peace activist, and that's what I'm all about as well. So let's push for that ceasefire, because I know civilians are getting killed in Ukraine. Don't get me wrong. I predicted that before it actually ever began. That's what happens in war. And again, remember what happened in Iraq. Now, some estimates are 1 million. My God, it's just beyond comprehension. 1 million civilians were killed in Iraq because of that war that everybody knows, and even we admit now, the United States that is, was under a false flag, a false pretense. Those weapons of mass destruction did not exist. We shouldn't have went in there and bombed the shit out of Iraq on that premise. And I'll tell you something, folks. You know who knew that at the time? You know who was fully aware of that? Yeah, the evil Vladimir Putin. Think what would have happened if he had sent the Russian military into Iraq because he knew that we shouldn't be there and civilians were dying because of our presence in Iraq. Again, we might not be on the air. We might not be talking to Bonnie Louise Brown. We might not be having this podcast by George Live Line. So that's going to be my closing comment. We're going to wrap it up. I'm going to encourage everybody to watch Podcast by George on Facebook and on YouTube. That's where the live streams and the videos reside. And if you want to pick a platform to listen to the audio like iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or someplace like that, it's really easy to do that. Just go to podcastbygeorge.com and, click on the little icon there, and you can pick wherever you want to listen to us, but you'll always be able to see us on YouTube and Facebook. But that's going to do it. That's going to wrap it up. That's all there is. And there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.